Okay.
Okay.
Welcome to Base Camp Beta. This is episode number 117. I nailed it. I knew which episode it was. This is a running gag / nightmare of ours. Chris is going to be MIA today, but fortunately, we have with us Lea Bertucci.
Hello.
Musician, composer, photographer, sound artist. What else? How else can we describe you?
Enthusiast.
So what are you enthusiastic about?
Oh, gosh. So many things. Where to even start?
Well, you tell me. What is enthusing you right now?
Well, my garden is in full swing.
Okay.
Growing lots of cool stuff in my backyard and, trying to kill all the cucumber beetles that I can.
That's right. So you're up in Kingston these days.
Yes. Yep.
What are you growing in the garden?
I have, so many things. All these heirloom tomatoes. We did asparagus. I like to grow the expensive vegetables, potatoes, carrots, I can buy that,
Yeah.
But fresh greens and arugula, herbs and stuff like that. Yeah.
But so the beetles go after the cucumbers? Is that their thing?
It is an issue, okay? And I go out every morning with my coffee and I smush little bugs. That's how I start my day. That's how I get ready to go and work in the studio.
That sounds really wholesome.
It kind of is. It's a really, it is a wholesome lifestyle that I have right now.
Bug stomping?
Yeah, it's great.
Growing, studioing?
Yeah, and just being close to the earth in a way that when I lived in the city was less available to me. So, that feels good. Swimming every day. The joys of summer in upstate New York are very real, as you know.
Summer is amazing. Summer and fall are amazing.
Yeah.
Upstate's pretty great.
It's great. And, I also have to say, the music scene up there is, killing right now. There's so much good stuff to do, so many good shows. My partner runs an art gallery up there called Roundabouts Now. They show really amazing, weird art. And, there's just, there's a feeling of possibility in upstate New York that I think was, more present in New York City,
15 plus years ago?
Yeah, I was going to say 25 years ago, but, whatever.
We're grading on a scale here.
Yeah. However, in the past, right? Whereas there's in upstate, there's abandoned warehouses that you can just throw a show in or, little weird back rooms of bars where somebody happens to be amenable to it or a society that will let you put on a show in the ruins of a building.
Well, speaking of buildings and possibility and things to be thankful for, I do want to give a quick plug to Public Sound, where we are at again today. At the wonderful courtesy of Ryan Woodhull, so shout there.
Hey.
I guess let's dive into podcasting proper.
Okay, let us cast our pods.
Ye who cast the first pod.
Yeah.
So we usually start things by just getting a kind of overview of the work of our guests. And so, this is something, Lea, you and I have talked about a lot in the past. But
we went to graduate school together.
We went to graduate school together, and we shared an undergrad alma mater, even if we didn't really interface then.
True. Yeah, we do have a very similar education.
The best. The best.
Only the best for us.
We asked our guests, how they found themselves on this path of making weird music, weird art. Was there a moment in your youth, whether that was an album you encountered, a scene, a person, a teacher or a mentor? So how did you find your inroads into the world of weird art?
Well, this is a question I've been asked before. How did you start playing music, basically? And there's an answer that I give, which is that I'm the product of public school band. When I was in 4th grade, I joined band and I played alto saxophone, and somehow I still play that instrument. I mean, I do a lot of other stuff too, but I stuck with it. But But I'm going to answer the question actually in in a slightly more less straightforward way.
Yeah, give us the weird shit.
So I have this memory, I was thinking about this the other day, where I was probably like 10 or 11 years old, and there were these types of gum. There was a type of gum where it would be like in a little plastic tray with like a foil over it, and you would pop the gum out of the foil. And I remember like collecting the foil in my hand and kind of crumpling it up in this way, and then kind of just like moving it around like real close to my ear and making this sound, this like very textural kind of almost chime-like sound out of this foil. And I remember doing that like in school and people being like, "What are you doing?" And I sort of like had that weird memory, and I was like, "Oh, right, I've always been this way." Like, I don't know. I've just had like a interest in Foley, like reality Foley or something. I don't know.
That's an awesome story. So, like, were you a weirdo in school as a kid?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I grew up in upstate New York, like close to where I live now, in a trailer park, and I went to public school, and I was always like an arty kid. I was always into like art class, ceramics, photography, and then
DIY Foley.
DIY Foley. I didn't even know what that was. It's so weird. I just like, it's strange also to like remember that because it's such a fleeting kind of moment, but somehow it really does resonate with like the way that I manipulate objects for their sonic properties.
It's a beautiful, beautiful story. It made me think of like when you were just telling that, like what came to mind for me as a similar analog was I can remember when I was maybe 8, staring in the mirror and saying the word Batman over and over and over again to myself until the meaning was totally obliterated.
Nice.
It was, I have transcendental meditation background, so it was definitely like a kind of meditative practice, but it was also like very much a sonic and embodied practice.
I love that. Batman.
And the whole world is off. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm going to try that. Watch out for my next record, everyone.
It's called Batman.
Exactly.
Yeah. Continue.
So cool. I don't know. School, yes. So yeah, I went to like a rural public high school. Didn't have much in the way of prospects. Somehow for some reason, I always say like if my life made any sense, I would have gone to like a state school. But somehow I ended up going to Bard College, which is like they had like a program for like underserved youth. And so I was able.
This is a good thing that Bard does is that they do have like really strong scholarship programs for local kids in the Red Hook area.
Yeah, for sure. And I love criticizing Bard. There's much to criticize, but I will say,
hi Leon.
Yeah, hi Leon. Sorry, bro. My joke about Leon is that it's too bad that he didn't get taken down for his bad conducting. He's the only one-handed conductor I've ever seen.
I've never seen him conduct, so.
It's not pretty. Although he has gotten better. I saw him conduct the Stravinsky's Rite of Spring a couple years ago at Bard, and that's a notoriously difficult piece to play and to conduct because there's like multiple time signatures overlapping, and it's super complex. And he did better.
Okay,
it was better than when I had seen him years ago. Well, so. Anyway.
There's hope for all of us.
Yeah, it just means,
even people who affiliate with sex offenders.
Yeah, practice makes perfect. Yeah. Well, also the thing about, if I just may digress for a moment, the thing about that whole situation with Bard and the Epstein thing is that in some ways it is very true that like being a fundraising person does mean that you have to rub elbows with whether it's a sex offender
Absolutely.
or a war criminal or a big pharma person or, like the people that have money and power in this country are people who are involved in activities that are pretty unethical. So
No, I think you're 100% right. This is much less an indictment of Leon specifically, and more an indictment of the way that any kind of public good has to operate.
yeah, I mean, that said, I do think that he displayed a really bad
Yes.
sense of judgment, and you're the head of an institution that has a lot of young women in it. So to lie and break that trust, just bad judgment all around.
He should have stepped down way before he did, but
Yeah.
you know what? It happened anyway, so.
Well, let's see what happens with the school now.
It's true.
Let's see, what direction it goes in, and hopefully they can continue to give out scholarships, because it definitely did expand my universe in ways that I never would have been expanded. And I did get a really good education and forged really good relationships with people and professors that I later become friends with. It's legit.
Yeah, but I think Bard really is an amazing school, and totally foundational to so much of what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, still like a huge number of my close friends are people I met. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, behold the complexity.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's real.
Yeah.
That's real.
Yeah.
But yeah, so let's keep pushing forward with music.
Okay, yeah. Actually, so when I was at Bard, I didn't do much music. I was a photography major. I kind of figured out that was the hardest thing to do there, and so I wanted to do it.
Yeah, the photo department at Bard still is very, very highly esteemed and very competitive.
Yeah, totally. The quality of work that people make, and the quality of the professors is just amazing. So I kind of switched gears. Going into Bard, I was, basically a jazz musician.
Right.
And for a bunch of different reasons, I kind of came to realize that jazz was not my voice. I love a lot of jazz music, but it didn't feel authentic to the type of expression that I was interested in pursuing.
Right.
Around that time, I started getting into noise music. John Cage, Joan LaBarbera, Meredith Monk, the whatever American avant-garde.
Sure.
And so I was just kind of expanding beyond jazz. And then I also had some like weird experiences with like bro jazz musicians that really made me actually like stop playing music for a couple of years. So I kind of like switched gears and did visual art and was really immersed in that for a while. And I think it's really good to have sort of like sideways influences, you know, to not have all of your own work be influenced by the genre or even the discipline that you work in, right?
Absolutely.
So being influenced by like film for me was like really big.
I was going to ask at some point, like the connections between your visual practice and your musical one, but maybe we can bracket that for now.
Yeah, well, I mean,
or if you want to dig into it, then yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, we can dig into it. It's something that I've thought a lot about. I think it's just like, so when I did photography, I developed this process where I would photograph architecture with 35 millimeter slides. And then I would take those slides, put them in a projector, and then project those onto like different architectural surfaces. So I was overlaying
architecture with architecture.
Architecture with architecture, right? So creating like double images, like layering, collaging, that kind of thing. Like collaging with light and with architecture, right? With the built world. There's something about the way that I use field recordings that is really similar to the way that I would go out with my camera and photograph things, you know? It's really like attuning yourself to what is fascinating about the world around you and being like in love with the phenomena of light, right? And light and sound also have this amazing kind of relationship where they're part of the same spectrum, right? Like light is sound waves, like they're all waves. It's all waves, man. In like the hippie sense. But, you know, sound can do a lot of the same things like reflect or diffuse that light can. So just being interested in that kind of phenomena, I think, is what led me towards applying those interests to music. And also like freeing myself of jazz, not in a free jazz way.
Right. Freeing yourself of free jazz even.
Freeing myself of free jazz also. Yeah. Just like freeing myself of any kind of vernacular, you know, and just trying to cultivate a voice of my own, which, you know, is always a work in progress.
Cool. So let's. Do you have any more thoughts on the relationship between sound and vision? Do you want to? I know like graphic scores are a big part of your process as well. Do those factor into this kind of conceptualization, or is that kind of a different kind of domain for you?
I see graphic score making as like a form of creative technical drawing.
Okay.
You know, because you're basically making a drawing of events that occur over time. So you have to deal with time in some way. Well, also, there's a few different ways of going about making a graphic score, right? So there's like the one way that is totally interpretive, like Cornelius Cardew's treatise is a perfect example of it, where there's no instructions on how to play it.
Right.
It's these graphics that are totally freely interpreted by the performer. So it can sound like anything. It can have any instrumentation. The performer has a lot of control. The composer, to some degree, cedes a lot of control.
Yeah.
So that's one way of going about that, which I find super interesting, and you know that's part of what I do as well. And then for other compositions of mine where you need to have events that occur over time in some kind of structured way, I've developed like other systems of conveying those things, and it varies from piece to piece. But I have things that I've sort of developed, like kind of rules. Like I don't reinvent the wheel every time,
right?
Like in a Christian Wolf kind of way,
right?
But yeah, I think that there's something. I think that there's something very fun for me in understanding what I'm making in the process of hand drawing out a score, because just like the act of mark making is similar to the act of making sound. It's a time-based thing. You're doing it. It's gestural, right? So there are aspects of that are, I think, similar.
The sound vanishes, though, and the image stays.
Correct. Yes. And, you know, sometimes with the image, you can make something that has some latitude of interpretation, right? So building into, like, a lot of my compositions, they're not straight improvisations, but there's latitude for interpretation.
Right.
Like it doesn't have to be exactly the same every time, but as long as certain things occur at certain points in the piece, then that's the piece.
Then it's the piece, right?
Yeah. And so having kind of like ambiguous notation where it's not like painstakingly notated in like the Western style, I think allows the performer to have a bit more freedom and allows the music to like have flexibility and flow so that it can sort of respond to the context of when it's being performed.
So I guess like the two modalities here are sort of graphic score as kind of like art piece in and of itself, that is very open to interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
So that mode seems to me to actually center the visual.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other suggested mode is one in which graphic notation allows the composer to like sort of express things that would be otherwise constrained by Western notation.
Yeah, or just like portrayed in an overly complex way in
Right.
Western notation.
Right.
You know, like music has to flow. And if you want to express that, I think an effective way to do that is being creative in your mark making.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess like precise dynamics over time are something that are going to be really kind of like clunky to notate in Western notation, whereas visually that could actually be pretty clear.
Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah, or something like bow pressure.
Right.
Correlating to how like heavy a mark is made on a piece of paper.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's been like a really rewarding thing to explore in the last, I don't know, 15 years.
So what is your favorite graphic score? Just in the kind of like canon of graphic scoredom.
Oh gosh. Well, I think like Anthony Braxton's notation system is pretty interesting, where he has like different symbols for different types of sounds,
Right.
And you like draw them on cards, and then that's like a system of improvisation. I think that can be a really wonderful one. I think James Tenney has done some really great scores. I think the score to his double bass piece called Beast is pretty great.
Okay, I don't know that one offhand.
Yeah, beautiful piece. He was a double bassist, I think. So there's a lot of great graphic scores from like the spectralist composers like Radulescu, who would always put these like beautiful like poetic fragments at the beginning of each like system that someone was to play, to kind of like guide the conceptual feeling of the player with these
Lovely.
like ambiguous poetics. I like that idea.
How do poetics feature in your own work?
Good question. I just started kind of like working with a poet, doing some kind of like free form interpretation of her words, like fragments of her poetry. The last few years, I've been doing more experiments with language. My last record, which is called The Oracle, I'm processing my voice through a reel-to-reel tape machine, and kind of that process like breaks apart language into more like textural sounds. Sometimes a fragment or an entire word or a phrase is like in there. And it's interesting because people will hear parts of it that like other people don't hear, or will, project their own meaning onto things. So it's just kind of like about the malleability of language. I think language is a really interesting thing to explore right now, because like our culture is undergoing massive transformations around language. I mean, not even wanting to get into the AI part of it all.
Yeah.
I think that there's like a lot of revolutions going on about like the way that we speak, and of course like censorship and all that stuff. Nobody quite knows how to communicate with each other, and it's a big issue for us as like a civilization. So I think like anytime you play around in that field, some interesting things can come up. Just with the complexities of communication and the limitations of language.
So there's a few more things I want to touch on regarding kind of signification.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, I kind of want to loop back to the question of the voice.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's our original instrument.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
You've had a long running practice with the breath with wind instruments.
Yeah.
The tape machine and voice are one of, if not your primary instruments at the current juncture. Is that?
Yeah. Right now I'm doing like 3 different things. I'm doing the tape voice thing. I'm playing more saxophone. I played saxophone last night with David Watson on bagpipes. And then I have a new project called Bow and Arrow, and that's more voice-based.
Okay.
I'm processing,
but not processed.
A little bit. Like I'm processing my voice through this other piece of machinery called the Vocodec, which is like a custom voice processor built by Jeff Snyder. And using the voice has been interesting. I think a lot of people have like neurosis around the voice. I think at some point everybody's been told, oh, you can't sing, in like this mean way. And, our voices are like our primary mode of communication. So it's really something to be at peace with, I think. You don't have to be like a Whitney Houston singer to like be able to feel comfortable expressing yourself through singing. But it took me a while and I've been doing a lot of training too. So I've honed the instrument.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, like, what is there a through line here between the kind of wind instruments and your use of the voice? And I guess related to that, like, has taking up the voice, so taking up the voice has been a sort of like therapeutic process for you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I would say that the through line is definitely something to do with the breath, right? Because the breath supports both modes of musicking, whether with woodwind instruments or with voice. And it is also the thing that sustains us, keeps us alive, can get us high, can rebirth us. You know, if anyone's ever done any weird, wacky, hippie stuff like that.
I just say Batman in the mirror.
Hey, I just crumple up foil from gum wrappers. I don't know. We all have our things.
Transcendence can be found anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, part of how I warm up before a show is I'll do like the yoga breath of fire thing, which is like really amazing for like strengthening the diaphragm, and then also just like it gets you amped up and also calmed down simultaneously.
Is that the one where you just breathe in and out quickly with your diaphragm?
Yeah, like you fill your breath about 3/4 full, and then it's all through the nose.
Right.
A forceful short exhale, and then a kind of passive inhale. So it's like,
right.
And you do it a bunch of times until you start feeling a little wacky. And then you take like a deep breath in, deep breath out, all the way out, and then you repeat like another 50 times until basically you feel like ready to rock it. So, I think it can be like a extremely powerful way to like focus our minds and like deal with our nervous systems and circulation and stuff like that. And it is our life force. So, you know, voice, woodwinds, it's all based on our breath, which is our life force. So it's deep. I don't know.
Without sounding too woo here, I want to somehow draw a line from the breath to light.
Yeah.
The line goes like this. It's a curved line, even a wave.
Yeah, totally. Well, you know, again, it's just, you know, something about being curious about the world around me, you know, being curious about like, how do I live? How like what is so beautiful about the way that the sunlight filters through this window on like at 5 p.m. on this particular day of the week?
So it's really a mode of like phenomenological inquiry, basically.
I guess you could use that fancy word.
I went to Bard.
You're right. Which is why I don't use it.
That's right.
But essentially, yes, it is about, you know, I think it's really important to be curious about the world around you, you know, and to revel in like the amazingness of it. And that's also why I don't like astrology.
Okay. What do you feel like what is your objection to astrology? How I guess more pressingly, how does that factor into this sort of mode of phenomenological inquiry?
Because the world is interesting enough. I don't think it's necessary to apply meaning in that kind of way. I also think it's just wrong, you know, because it doesn't account for like the drift of the heavens that like isn't even measurable to us.
So my defense of I don't
like astronomy. Okay.
I don't have any particularly like strong how to put this. I don't feel like compelled to defend astrology per se. Mm-hmm. And there's plenty about the kind of broader culture of it that's, I mean, we can just say it's fucked up.
I mean, I understand it. I understand the ways in which like religion has failed people or psychoanalysis has failed people, and they're looking for an answer to make sense of the chaos of our existence. And, you know, sometimes like it's a deeply human thing to want answers. So I'm not trying to be like, you know, too annoying about it and say like, oh, astrology is all bullshit. Because, oh wait, can I curse on this? Am I allowed to curse? Okay, great. It's a podcast.
Just curse like a stream of obscenities.
Okay, great.
From here on out.
Okay, excellent. But yeah, I think it's there's something that's like already in the material world that is amazing.
That's sufficient.
And mystical.
Yeah.
And unknowable and beautiful. And I guess I'm just like more interested in that than I am applying some kind of like other meaning to these things.
How I would defend these kinds of like woo divinatory methods is actually precisely as a kind of mode of like auto-psychoanalysis.
Sure. It's an exercise in projection.
Yeah.
You hear what you want to hear in your horoscope and you discard the information that doesn't really apply to you.
Well, yeah, but so if you approach it understanding that that is what's going to happen.
Sure.
Then like things like tarot, for instance, can tell you things about yourself that you weren't quite seeing.
Sure.
So I think that's useful. So I think that there is a way in which we need to be cognizant of the kind of like the domain of the mystical as providing access to something that evades our like rational selves.
Sure. I just believe that the domain of the mystical is like within the limits of our own consciousness.
It's already there.
Yeah, like that's what I find mystical
is pure
like,
immanence.
Yeah, is like what we don't understand, right? So I don't know. I'm a big Carl Sagan fan, and he wrote a lot about this topic in ways that are really kind of beautiful. And this is also why like sound healing is always like I'm a little bit unsure about that one as well.
How do you feel about multi-channel work?
Well, oh my gosh. Well, like anything, you don't want to get too lost in the sauce.
Right.
You know. I just did a big multi-channel piece, and spatial sound is definitely having a moment.
Sure is.
A lot of people are very interested in it, and the technology has become much more accessible. I think that it's part of like this idea of immersive art, to use like the most overused term imaginable. But it's like, yeah, to create an environment, to create something that has dimensionality. And, like anything, there can be pitfalls to it, ways that, the sound is distributed in ways that are like cliche or just like not very effective. But it also, like when used well, it can be an amazing experience. So it just runs the gamut. It depends on like what someone is doing with it and how much sort of work they put into it, I guess.
Well, let's loop back to you.
Me. Yeah.
So you went to Bard, studied photography.
Yeah.
And practiced photography as your primary kind of mode of artistic expression, primary medium for a good number of years, and then found your way back to music. So how did that happen?
Well, I ended up hanging out with a lot of musicians in my early 20s. And, in the culture, in the underground culture of New York City, I didn't find much in the art world that was for me. I just found that like the Chelsea gallery scene was like not interesting to me and not something I particularly wanted to be a part of. And that the places that I felt most like at home and there were like real strange people hanging out were at like underground experimental music events. And so I think I kind of like found my culture that way. A sort of like no profit context rather than like the hyper-capitalist art world of like Chelsea. So yeah, so I just kind of like eventually, music is the best drug. What can I say? I'm a drug addict and I love the drug of music.
Just crumpling that little pice of foil.
I mean,
Still chasing that high.
Oh, yeah, really.
Without the connotations of foil and drugs, right?
I know. Yeah, God, could it get even worse? Jeez.
But yeah, so like, how did you like get back into music then, like performing?
It wasn't one thing. I think it was just kind of like a slow sort of like movement towards that. I felt like I had kind of investigated what I was like interested in investigating with photography. I had kind of like done what I was going to do with it. And, I worked as an architectural photographer, like as a day job for a long time. So like I have those skills, and it's nice to use those parts of my brain when I can. But I think it was just kind of the culture, and I played music before I did visual art. So it was always something that was like very much embedded in my history. So it felt like kind of, it made sense. I think the visual art was more of like a detour into just like seeing what else is out there and other ways of thinking. It expanded me into like experimental cinema, like all that stuff I didn't know about before. And that is a huge influence on what I do now. So, yeah.
I guess my question is almost more kind of like basic and practical. Like, what did the process of like starting to perform music again like look like and feel like for you?
I remember being very like nervous at first because I wasn't like.
And what were the contexts?
Like basements in Bushwick in 2008, basically, with like a bunch of drunk people and hauling around weird tape machines and doing like harsh noise feedback sets with my bass clarinet and
also like what were you performing with then?
Yeah, I used to do this thing where I would play bass clarinet and I would put like a lavalier microphone inside of it, and then I would just allow it to feedback, add some compression to it, and then the pitch of the feedback would be determined by whatever keys were open or closed. And then I would also get like the sounds of blowing through it. So just like super extended techniques on the over-amplified bass clarinet.
Shredding.
Yeah, kind of shredding, like, harsh improv kind of stuff. And that was really nice way to get into like visceral modes of improvisation. But, that world was a little limited for me. So, I started making compositions for other instruments and electronics around 2012 or so. I think that was the first piece that I wrote for other instruments.
Okay, so what was that piece? Like, walk us through it.
Oh, that piece was actually about breathing.
Okay. Hey!
Yeah. I never really... It's something that, like, I returned to that and I listened to it a while ago and I was like, oh, this isn't good. I mean, it has, like, great moments, but it's definitely, like, not where I'm at anymore.
Sure. I mean, there's no judgment here. I mean, we all have pieces that are necessary misguided experiments, and
I mean, it wasn't misguided. It just was like proto.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like I was just sort of figuring out how to do it, and so I wrote a piece for. Let's see if I can remember the instrumentation: trumpet, euphonium, double bass, viola. Was there a cello in it? I don't think so. I think it was just 5 instruments, if I remember correctly. And I had them all up in the balcony at Roulette. All the instruments were up there, and then I had someone playing modular synthesizer in quad coming through the speakers. And so the timbres of the instruments were sort of intertwining with the electronic sounds, and everybody was playing with a lot of breath. So like the gesture would be that you put breath through your instrument, or if it's a string instrument, texture, like non-pitch sound. And then that kind of goes into a pitch, and then it goes out as a non-pitched breath sound. So it was kind of like, these sort of crescendos and decrescendos overlapping with different instruments spatialized throughout the room. And, I learned a lot doing it, and it was like my first crack at writing music for other people to play. And, yeah, it was a good experience. It's just interesting to, like, revisit it after all those years and be like, wow, I've really developed something, like, I'm better at this. I've gotten better at this.
Well, that's
which is, nice.
that's what you want to feel.
Yeah. I mean, you would hope.
I don't always feel that way. I know plenty of people don't. Well, not that I'm incapable of making better work, but just that like the process sometimes is not so linear.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, music is a muscle.
Yeah.
And practice is a real thing for me. That's also like playing an instrument. You have to have certain muscles developed. But
particularly as a wind instrument player.
Yeah, for sure. But also, yeah, you're right. I mean, it isn't always like just in the way that civilization doesn't always head towards progress. Sometimes you have to take a meander through the dark forest in order to like come out somewhere that is where you want to be.
The idea for the piece though that you just described sounds actually like the idea is totally solid and like the piece is there. Maybe it was just a little like kind of overbaked.
I think it was just that like I was too nervous about music.
Okay.
And I didn't really understand what the properties of the instruments were on like a technical level.
Right.
Like for example, the gesture that I described where you just push air through an instrument and then it's like sort of kind of comes into a pitch and then goes out of a pitch into air in like a smooth way. You can't really do that with a brass instrument.
Right.
So a brass instrument, you can push air through it, but then it's kind of on or off.
Yeah.
Like the moment, and a woodwind instrument is different in that way. Or a reed instrument specifically is different in that way. So I just didn't have like, enough experience. And I definitely, I didn't go to school for music, so I never took those classes. So I was just kind of like messing around with stuff. I also think that like my sense of harmonic complexity was not as developed. And so I was afraid of like taking risks.
Okay.
So it's a lot of octaves and fifths, which is fine.
Sometimes you gotta.
Yeah, but dissonance is cool too. I do love a good fifth still though.
What
especially if it's slightly flattened.
Okay. How did it feel taking the step from being a performer to being a composer?
Well, in certain ways, it's really terrifying to like watch a composition of yours being played, and you're not involved with it. You have to like cede control to some degree and trust that the performers are going to like come through in the way that they need to come through. That's also why in the process of making a lot of what I make involves rehearsing with specific people.
Right.
And I often write music for specific people. The last piece that I did was a piece for medieval flutes, and it was written for somebody that had certain instruments and a certain kind of musical background.
Right. This is the collaboration with Norbert Rodenkirchen. Is that his name?
Yes.
It was.
Yeah, good one.
Trying to remember the name.
Yeah.
Nail the pronunciation.
Yes, an intense German name. He's a early flutist from Cologne, part of the amazing group Sequentia, who are known for being pretty mystical interpreters of medieval music. And he has an array of these wooden and bone archaic flutes that are based on designs from the Renaissance, medieval, and even Neolithic times. He has these bone flutes. One is made out of a swan, the other one's made out of a sheep bone. And
cool.
Each instrument has its own tuning. It has its own types of timbre. It has different ranges. So it was just amazing to work with him. That piece, the way that piece works is that I sampled pitches, like sustained tones, and then different musical gestures from 5 of these flutes in his collection. And then I chopped all that stuff up and basically put it into Ableton as samples that I could deploy live over an 8-channel spatialized speaker array. And then he plays live with it. So there are moments where he's playing solo and then a bunch of, flute choir, dissonant flute choir sounds all stacked on top of each other come in. And it was a great piece to I learned so much about tuning, about like the history of music. So it's something I'm very, very proud of. And I worked on a lot while we were at Wesleyan.
I recall the process
Yeah.
fairly vividly.
Yeah.
Certainly several of the performances and your rehearsals. But you mentioned you learned a lot. What are a couple just really choice tidbits that you learned about either music history or like the kind of tuning systems?
Well, that like the major triad is a very recent invention. In early music, it was all like thirds were considered dissonant, which I really agree with. Also that like tuning has gone from, 435 to 415 to 440. So that's kind of like a weird and interesting thing. Prince has a lot to say about that. But, there's...
What do you feel about 432 hertz?
I mean, I feel fine about it.
I'm sure you're aware of the kind of like cult of people.
The God resonance or whatever,
right.
The God frequency. Yeah, I don't know about that. I can neither prove nor disprove.
Hold on, I got to go back to my sound bath before I answer that.
Yeah. Maybe when I get to the pearly gates of heaven, God will be like 432.
It was 420, bro.
It was actually 420 this whole time.
It fooled you.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think one thing for me, a big takeaway in making that piece is like learning how to work with the materials that you have. So for example, like with the tuning, so the flutes are all in different tunings. So if I were to layer one flute on top of another, it sounds totally weird. There are some notes that they share that are kind of pivots, like a B in the bass Renaissance flute is the same as a C in the medieval traverso flute, for example. So just thinking about like different approaches for dealing with the different nature of those materials. And my where I kind of landed with it is that I wanted to actually like lean into the dissonances and contrast the different timbres of the flutes with each other. Because amazing phenomena can happen, like microtonal stuff, psychoacoustic stuff. Like when you take every pitch of a flute and stack it on top of each other, you get these amazing tone clusters that like move around and do psychoacoustic stuff in your ears. So that was pretty amazing discovery for me. A way of like achieving what Marianne Amache had been working on with synthesis, but with like these flutes from 30,000 years ago.
So you're unlocking the like secret psychoacoustic properties of ancient instruments.
Yeah, and then also thinking about like what the spiritual and phenomenological implications of that are.
Well, you already outed yourself as like a kind of like assiduous like anti-mystic. So
No, I'm pro-mystic. I just think that mysticism lies within the limitations of our own consciousness, not within some kind of like predetermined system.
Sure.
Oh
yeah, I had a point there, but now it's gone. It's all gone.
Yeah.
Like the vast sea of deep time.
Yes. Well, and actually, time was something that I thought about a lot in the making of this piece. Making a piece that is very sample-based and, contingent on all of these elaborate recordings. Recording is like a tiny blip in the history of making music. And the oldest fully intact musical instrument ever found is a bone flute. And so there's something just fascinating thinking about, how music was developed, and what that moment was in the history of, our civilization when we went from making objects that had purposes that were directly related to survival to making objects that were more based around expression.
Right.
Or ritual or spirituality or something like that. And I think that like those bone flutes signified that moment when we stopped just making stuff for survival and started like making art.
Well, surely there are earlier art objects than the first musical instrument.
Yeah, I mean, there are those like cave paintings that they've found. Those are kind of concurrent, though.
Okay.
Like the cave of Forgotten Dreams.
Yeah.
That's all like from the same area,
Okay.
and from the Aragonesian taskscape. Yeah.
I guess like, I mean, so what is sort of like alluded to here is the kind of fact that one can only kind of like one could only create an art object when the capacity for kind of like social reproduction was solved, right?
Or there was like some amount of stability.
Right.
And communication also became like stable and sophisticated enough that people were looking for like other methods, maybe.
I guess, I mean, what I'm questioning here is like is the causality. Like I'm wondering like maybe these things were more intertwined than it seems, or maybe that you're sort of suggesting.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think it's hard to know. Like I don't think there was like one moment where people were like, "Oh, we don't have to just survive. It's okay.
Right, we got it.
We're good. We figured this out." I think it's impossible to like actually know because
of course
we have things that survive. What about all the stuff that doesn't survive? Right. But I do think that there is something like interesting in that cognitive leap that was made at some point from just barely hanging on to actually like developing systems of communication.
Right. Well, I mean, what I'm sort of maybe suggesting.
And communication not just between people, but also between like the spiritual realm, perhaps.
Right.
Or between animals and people.
Right.
Thinking about like flutes and bird song, for example.
Right. Well, and all isn't it right that like all kind of early human figurative art involves kind of anthropomorphized animals? Yeah,
I mean, there's like handprints that are pretty human. But
right. I meant figurative, like here is a drawing of like a person, except the person has a bird head.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I mean, I know that like the Venus of Willendorf is purely just human.
Right.
But I think that does figure a lot into much of the art that survives from that period.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, the human animal, man. Ugh.
That's true. We are meat like the things we consume.
Yeah.
Wow. So we went from almost present day Lea to the dawn of human civilization. Let's
We've gone from here and back 25 years, back 25,000 years.
Let's take that curve from breath to light back to the present moment.
Yeah. I do love thinking about deep time, though. It's geologic time.
Yeah. It's a vast speculative space. Mm-hmm. Partially because all we can do is project. Yeah,
and this is also one of the things that is interesting to me about like medieval music. Beyond the fact that it's like interesting to think about the Dark Ages at this point in our existence. Is that a lot of medieval music has to do with interpretation because there was no recordings and music notation was like,
different.
Sketchy at best, implied. Let's say an aid to memory.
It's a graphic score.
Yes, actually, a lot of like the contour ideas of contour, like drawing the contour of melody, is in like numic notation from like the 12th century. But so yeah, it does require a degree of imagination, and I've been thinking a lot about like imagination in like art making. How important that is for me, and that's something that I really value in other people's music is when I hear something that's imaginative, that surprises me, that is there's like a sound that comes from somewhere and I'm not sure where what it is. those are always qualities that I just really savor.
Awesome. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, and like stretching our imaginations too, outside of our own experiences.
What do you mean?
Like, thinking about deep time. Like,
Okay.
I've never experienced deep time.
Well,
it's a concept, but it's something that like is true to like what it is to be a planet.
okay. So you mean by like thinking on like kind of non-human scales?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Not to be so anthropocentric, perhaps.
I mean, yeah, a human thinking about non-human scales is still mediated through the human. So, you're kind of caught in these loops there.
Well, again, that's the limitations of our own consciousness and, good to be aware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so let's go back to like approximately present day and keep kind of like tracing through like your work. Where is your work right now?
So, well, like I said before, I'm kind of doing like 3 different projects. I'm doing more solo work in the vein of the Oracle. So I'll probably have like a new record's worth of material like that by the spring.
Cool.
The next album that I have coming out is a new project with a classical guitarist named Michael Bahari. We're called Bow and Arrow. We decided to start a band and have like a band name. There's not enough bands anymore. Everyone's like a duo or just like their names.
It's real expensive to tour.
I know it is, but it's a 2-person band, so that helps. That helps.
You just said a duo.
Yeah, it is a duo, but we really wanted it to be a band. It's a band because to me, it's music that neither of us would make on our own, and it's like an interesting meeting point between what we both do. I come from more experimental background. He comes from sort of like underground pop and classical music. So the project is us both using our voices. He plays guitar. I play bells and wooden flute. And it's a very kind of, we call it devotional music for the age of alienation, which I think is a good
It's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah, right? It's a good tagline.
So with this project, you're writing songs.
I wouldn't call them songs.
Okay, but songs?
I would say songs with like kind of a question mark at the songs.
It's speculative songwriting.
Yeah, I mean, so part of the material that we draw from is early music. Like we sing in Latin on one of the songs.
Okay.
Songs. And, but it's not a song in the sense of like, ABA, like verse, chorus, verse, conventional song structure. They tend to be like shorter and they're pretty structured. But there's some improvisation involved, but it's not as improvisational as like my own music. So yeah, it's a nice meeting point in between what we both do. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so, like anything else to add about like current projects?
I am trying to get some funding together to do a piece for Tubular Bells and voice.
Okay.
In multi-channel. So we'll see how that goes. I just like wrote a grant to help get some money together for that.
On the topic of funding and grant writing, one of the big questions that we pose to all of our guests, kind of the question we're structuring the podcast around, is how do you live as an artist under capitalism? How do you reconcile the contradictions between social reproduction of self and artistic constitution or fulfillment of self? And so grant writing seems to be an interesting inroads into that conversation.
Well, it definitely makes me want to die. Like 95% of the time.
Grant writing specifically, or
yeah. I've been on like multiple sides of it. I've worked as like an administrator at a nonprofit doing like grant facilitation. I've done it as an applicant for mostly unsuccessful applications. And I've also
Does
been...
anyone mostly succeed at getting grants? Does anyone bat more than 500?
That's a good question. I don't know. I would doubt it. I would highly doubt it. And I've also been a juror on grants. So I think it's interesting. I think a lot of it is kind of random at the end of the day.
Right.
It just depends on where your thing falls in the stack, how many other applications have like similar work to yours, and how well your work fits into the format that they request.
Right.
You know, like if you make work that is quiet and patient and requires 15 minutes of listening to really understand, or like is contingent on live performance, it might not like translate as well into like this rigid format that a lot of funding organizations like force people to be in.
Yeah.
So you can't ever take it too seriously. Don't put too much work into it. Don't use the word immersive. Actually, so for the last grant that I was a juror on, I did this thing where I kind of like went through all the text of the proposals, and I found the most commonly used descriptive words.
Immersive,
soundscape, grief,
okay,
care, loss.
Well, isn't
that interesting?
That's a word cloud right there.
Isn't that interesting, though? And I think that the latter three, grief, care, and loss, those are new. Like soundscape, immersive, those have been going on for like the last 10 years.
Right.
But these three new ones, I think, are very interesting, like post-pandemic sort of like
reckonings.
It kind of shows you where people are at and like what they are looking for or what they're trying to achieve. A lot of people want to do therapy in public, which I get. But yeah, there is something going on. I was very surprised when I stumbled across those words like over and over and over again. But yeah, so back, I mean, to your larger question of like, how do I do it? Oh God, I don't know.
I mean, like
cheaply. I do it cheaply.
The question is posed like both as kind of like a pragmatic nuts and bolts, like how do you actually do a question, but also posed in a kind of, poetic or philosophical.
How does one? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the way that I do it is that I have a very low overhead. I don't really buy much stuff. And I'm able to, that's why I have, a big garden. No, I don't know. I forage for mushrooms in the woods. That's how I'm doing this.
You squash bugs. That's how you get your paycheck.
Get my cucumbers, I'll be well fed at least. I do get money from making sample libraries sometimes. That's like been a nice source of income over the years, doing like music technology projects. I've been lucky to have like nice times performing and touring. Although I have to say that I think that the landscape of that is really difficult right now. Just like travel is expensive. I think promoters are being very conservative in what they're presenting.
Probably sort of justifiably, but you mean I'm sorry.
Conservative in the sense where they feel like they need to sell tickets.
Sure.
And so music that isn't so risky is really elevated right now, even like within the so-called adventurous music scene. What
without like, going down the names shit talk route, although we can do that if you want to.
No.
We're not above some shit slinging. But what characterizes like unriskiness within the so-called avant-garde to you right now?
I think that
other than immersiveness.
Yeah, well, definitely immersiveness, right?
Is grief risky?
Wow. I mean, depends on it depends on the form it takes, because grief is like a big thing that contains many emotions. So it just depends on like how it's handled. Grief can be a catharsis.
Yeah.
Grief can also be like a coddling or like a sound healing adventure I mean, it depends on how it's handled. I think that there is an aesthetic regime right now of music that has been very much influenced by Eliane Radigue, who is an amazing composer who makes work that is deep, 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 many layers, so much depth, and took her many years to master that music. I think there's a lot of music out there that sort of replicates that aesthetic. But
You mean sort of minimalist, long-form drone?
Yeah. That only uses like the surface characteristics of Radigue.
Right.
There's like artists like Tony Conrad or Phil Niblock who make similar work in a lot of ways that it's, dense drone, but it's music that like really pushes in like a visceral way. And we don't see that so much. We see that aesthetic sort of like distilled into like pop territory. And so like I guess I just kind of worry about that.
How would drone be distilled into pop territory?
Like shorter form songs.
Okay.
Lack of dissonance. Like keeping it all in a major key.
Pretty drone.
Yeah, like pretty drone. And like some of it can be really great. But I think that there's too much of it that sounds pretty similar to each other. And doesn't have the depth that Radigue had. And that's also because like Radigue had the spiritual framework that she was doing. And again, like it took her many decades of not being within the music scene.
Right.
To do that. I think I read something where before she made Trilogie de la Mort, she took off like 5 or 10 years from music making and did just like exclusively Tibetan meditation.
Well, she was in no small part due to her gender. She was sort of like on the outside of the GRM circles, is my understanding. So
she was involved in the GRM. She was like relegated to the cast of assistant, as was Beatrice Ferreira, who was part of that as well. But and it's so interesting because there was this interview that Ian Nagoski did with her in like 1999 where he was like trying to get in touch with her, and she had only released like 1 or 2 things like on Phil Niblock's label, actually. And he finally got in touch with her, and she replied and said, "Why do you want to interview me? Like nobody is interested in my music." And I think it's such a fascinating thing to hear somebody who arguably is the most influential composer in this like field at this point in time. So, good to play the long game, I suppose.
That's the lesson.
Yeah. But I think that there is like a rise of music that never wants to be too obtrusive.
Right.
That never wants to like push, that always is like kind of settling into the background.
Right.
And I mean, I don't believe that like music has to be like always aggressive necessarily, but I like dynamism in music, like a piece of music that can go from sounding really beautiful to sounding pretty like intensely ugly, can be like really effective and, also speak to like what it's like to have emotions, So I feel like I just want to see like more aesthetic range.
Right. Yeah. I guess like I'm half wondering right now, like the degree to which the sort of problems of drone music that you're outlining are not in part kind of a product of the form itself. That it lends itself to these experiences where it recedes into the background.
Well, Eliane so people say like, oh yes, I like to put on some Eliane Radigue and meditate.
Right.
She never wanted people to use her music in that way. And if you actually listen, there's so much stuff going on.
There is a lot. Yeah.
There's layers of stuff that like you don't even perceive that like comes out 40 minutes later. And that's the complexity of it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's necessarily or like, Lamont Young, for example, that music is actually incredibly demanding.
Yes.
Because it's subtle. All the like subtle interactions of the harmonics and the tuning and stuff like that, like it takes, 2.5 hours to like actually get there.
Right.
So it is rigorous and it is demanding.
2.5 hours of saying Batman.
Batman, Batman, Batman. Exactly. Exactly.
There's a lot of there is a lot of contour to the word Batman.
Batman. Batman, 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 Batman. I'm totally going to be doing that on the drive home. It's going to be great.
Well, I'm going to find some foil and crumple it up. So.
I highly recommend. Highly recommend.
I really need to find the vintage gum wrapper. Though.
Dentine.
Dentine.
Dentine wrapper. That's specifically what it was.
Vintage gear is all the rage these days. So, I've really got to get the cutting edge vintage Dentine wrappers.
I'm sure you could buy it on eBay.
Probably could.
I think they do have I think there is a vintage gum circuit that you could get into.
It's all out there. It's all out there. Deep time is in front of us.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, not to talk too much shit because there are artists that are contemporary that work in those zones. Cat Lamb is an amazing composer that works with sustained tones. Mm-hmm. Her work is so complex, and she's such a nerd about tuning. And she uses weird partials. She's not just using octaves and fifths.
Right.
She uses the crazy upper partials, and it's very exact and very precise. And, it can be really dissonant. I think that the thing about experimental music that I've always appreciated is that it pushes you to explore things that are challenging. And so then what happens when something is just not challenging anymore? And I don't want to get into whether it's experimental or not, because that's a boring conversation. But I don't know, there's some value in that because life challenges you. The experience of being alive is challenging, and cultivating some kind of tolerance for that, I think, is really important.
So you think of one function of experimental music is to sort of condition one to the hardships of life?
Yes, definitely.
Because I don't think I have that read, but I don't necessarily disagree with it.
It can also be an escape. You know, it can be a catharsis, but it sort of lives around that, and that it doesn't just give you everything you want.
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting framing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something about pushing at our margins of tolerance.
Right. And this relates to the kind of method of phenomenological inquiry, basically.
I guess so, right? Yeah. How much can you take?
Yeah. What are the upper thresholds, upper and lower thresholds of hearing or amplitude tolerance or,
Yeah, totally. Or just hearing the word Batman over and over again. Jeez.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I bet.
So any more thoughts or, poetics on how you live as an artist under capitalism?
So I truly think that we are watching a collapse of all systems in the arts. And AI is hastening that. AI can definitely up the threshold for how creative we have to be, because we can, it's so easy to have AI make a replica of some music. So we actually have to be more dynamic and more creative with what we make now, which could be a cool thing. Not that I'm definitely not saying AI is cool, because I am not a Holly Herndon, Silicon Valley Kool-Aid drinker. I very much think that AI is engaging in a, theft of intellectual property at a scale that is unimaginable. So, that's happening. But so, yeah, all of the systems that we've relied on are collapsing. And
by the systems that we've relied on, you mean systems of funding, but also kind of revenue streams?
Yes, revenue streams, record labels, tour managers, booking agents, festival, the whole thing. It's really endangered.
Yeah.
And I think that the only people who are going to make it, continue to make stuff, are people who understand how to do it ourselves, how to make something out of nothing. Being resourceful, I think, is a really incredibly important part of being an artist.
So you think that AI is going to make punk rock great again? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's definitely going to make a lot of, yeah.
I'm trolling here. But
Facsimiles of Green Day songs. Oh man.
No, I meant more, like in Trump 1.0, there was this, like general sentiment that like, like a kind of shitty repressive political climate's going to like make DIY, people are going to get more DIY and like, art's going to get like edgier and more antagonistic.
Yeah.
And then the opposite happened.
Right. Yeah. And that was because of economic pressures and clinging to like what we thought was working for us. I don't know, you and I have talked about this a lot. Maybe it's better to decouple how you live from how you make work.
Sure. Yeah.
I've always had day jobs because I come from a working class background and I don't have, systems of support to, sustain me.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird to live without a day job for now. But that's,
It's never off the table.
If anyone's hiring out there, everyone should know. I don't know. I thought about getting a job at the post office the other day, but then they drug test, so I can't. And they considered
too much dentine gum.
They considered weed a drug because it's a federal job. Anyway, so I can't be a postal worker. But yeah, I was like feeling like I was going to go postal. I don't know.
It sounds like a sick gig. You get to walk around.
I think it's actually really hard.
It probably is.
I think it's kind of punishing.
Going postal meant a thing for a reason.
Yes.
That reason actually primarily being like a sustained decades-long political assault on postal union workers. And
I know, but they get really good health care.
Right, but yeah. You want that job. You want that job.
I kind of want that job.
You want that job.
I know, but I love weed so much that I can't possibly be a postal worker. Although, because my thing
they
was...
They would go together so well.
That's what I was saying, is that I want a job that I could be really baked at all the time. And postal worker seems like a really good one, but apparently they're not.
Life is cruel. Life is cruel.
God, can you imagine being sober doing that? Like sorting mail?
But being high.
But being high, you wouldn't make any mistakes at all.
I'm like the number one like baby when it comes to weed. I take like 1 milligram of like a gummy or edible like twice a week, and I'm like, whoa, okay, whoa, I gotta go to sleep.
Yeah, Batman.
Shit, yeah, I should. I'm gonna go there.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's something about being resourceful that's really important. Like, you don't have the gear that you need. Well,
use whatever.
Use something else. You know, like I started working with tape because I found like a weird reel-to-reel machine at a yard sale for like $10.
I don't think you told me that origin story. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, that was the first reel-to-reel I ever bought.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so, you don't have to actually have resources in the same way.
Right.
Yeah. So just like staying within what is like makes sense.
Yeah.
And building community, like if nobody is like organizing the shows that you want to be in, do it yourself.
Yeah.
Make it happen. And it is possible.
You and I think I've talked about this a little bit, but there's something with the youth where Matt Sargent actually pointed this out to me. He was like, post-pandemic, I've been having to teach the kids how to like throw a show, like to put on a show. Like they didn't understand you could like, get your friends together, find a basement, and like play music for each other.
Yeah.
And like invite everyone.
Right.
And it seems to me like there's both a huge disconnect there, but also like this really intense yearning from the youth.
I think that people are dying for connection.
Yeah.
So music that feels intimate and honest is something that is very appealing to people. I think that the pandemic has like definitely like pushed back people's like social development.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be, and also people are very dissatisfied with the culture in which they've been forced into.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I think that is the number one reason why I don't think AI is gonna work. Is because at the end of the day, no one wants it.
Yeah, no,
Like,
I mean, people are very against it.
Yeah, they don't like the things that are made with AI because they suck.
Yes, well, yeah.
And AI getting better isn't going to solve that problem.
Yes, and, you know, people who are graduating from college are, like, booing the commencement speakers who are talking about AI is the
That
future.
kicked ass.
You know, I mean, I think that we are being sold a technology that could be used to, like, better humanity, you know? I mean, I'm not an absolutist about, like, AI is evil. AI is powerful, but it's being developed mostly by corporations that do not have the best interests of humanity in mind.
Yeah.
So you're basically using corporate tools.
It's funny because the entire discourse around automation up until this current wave of AI, you know, this is going back 15, 20 or even longer, but, you know, certainly 15, 20 years ago, there were concerns about the future of automation and what that was like going to do to work. And, you know, that was always focused on how AI was going to kind of like eliminate blue collar jobs. Or sorry, white collar jobs? Which one is which? White collar jobs.
Yeah, white collar. Well, mechanization was going to eliminate blue collar jobs.
Yes.
AI
was going, well, yeah, no, but the thing is AI isn't just going to AI isn't even eliminating the white collar jobs. It is eliminating all of the creative work that AI was originally supposed to kind of free up time for us to do.
Yes. Yeah. That's the funny thing. Everyone like talks about like, oh, AI, I can do it. Like, and now I have so much time.
Right. To do what?
And I actually don't. I think that's such a trap because then it just makes like your level of productivity in your job like higher. Like you're expected to produce more.
Yeah.
Because you can produce it with this thing.
Well, but then even like, you know, the last like wide scale studies that I encountered on it indicated that like AI wasn't even improving productivity.
Right.
So
interesting. Interesting. Well,
anyway,
one thing it's not improving is like cognitive ability.
Right.
You know, like people who use AI regularly have less cognitive functioning than people who have to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's big. So I think anytime that we can like actually use our brains is going to be something to savor.
Yeah. Well, my trick for that is just learning stuff all the time.
Learning stuff. Oh my gosh.
Which kicks ass. Learning kicks ass.
Yes, and also sometimes learning is hard.
It's always hard.
Yeah.
Like that's the point.
Yes, I know. But, you know, we also live in a culture where doing things that we're not good at, like,
feels bad,
right? But that's like...
But feeling bad feels good.
That's part of the process. That's like, you know, how we take pride in an accomplishment. Like, it was hard, but I did it.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
We are running close to time, I believe. So any final thoughts? Any wishes for the future of the world? What can you tell to the wider internet?
Wow. Well, thank you for having me on.
Thank you for. Well, I was going to conclude with that.
Oh, okay. I won't say that yet. I won't say that yet. So don't. I'm not thankful for being on yet. I don't know. I guess I would just say that like creative expression is something that is so central to our humanity, and it's really important to keep it up in some way. It makes ourselves better, and it makes like other people's lives better. I played a show the other day, and there was this poet who read, and she came up to me afterward, and she said that my set made her cry. And that to me is like truly the best compliment that you could ever get, that you moved somebody to tears with like a thing that you did.
Yeah. Like
artistically. Like that is so just, that's the honey of experience. So, you know, that stuff is out there, and I don't know. It's just important to like keep on keeping on with it and not let, the destabilized sadness of the world like get the better.
Keep on keeping on.
That's right.
Thank you for coming on, Lea. This was a blast.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Everyone, look forward to Lea's upcoming projects, and keep on keeping on.
Batman.
All right.